Picture this. You're a back dancer for Hong Kong's hottest boy band, Mirror, and at this point, you're about 4 days into a 12-day concert. Now, this concert is the biggest concert of the year in Hong Kong. The stage is huge, all the tickets have been sold out, and each and every show has been packed with cheering fans. Yet, behind the scenes, you know that things haven't been quite as glamorous. Equipment has been malfunctioning, a few of your fellow dancers have already been injured due to issues with the stage, and even right now as you're dancing, you can feel the stage crumbling underneath your feet. But it's okay, you tell yourself, you just have 8 more days to go. Just 8 more days and you're good. And then bam! You hear a deafening crash. You turn around and you realize that the inevitable has happened. Disaster has struck. Greetings, professors. Today I'll be talking about the horrific stage accident that happened during Mirror's concert last year. The accident, which has gone down as one of the worst in recent history, left one dancer with permanent life-changing injuries and exposed the shady practices of the Hong Kong concert industry. But before we get into it, I wanted to really quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, Audible. As some of you may know, I recently went to London for vacation, and while I was there, I was really busy meeting up with friends, going to tourist attractions. I was just constantly on the go, and I simply didn't have time to pick up a book and read. But luckily, I had Audible. So I went on Audible to see if they had any interesting audiobooks, and more specifically, I was looking for some books related to the UK, cause, I was kind of feeling that London vibe. And that was when I came across the book, The Diary of a Hounslow Girl. The Diary of a Hounslow Girl is a first-person account written by Shahida, who's a 16-year-old Pakistani girl who lives in Hounslow, London. Now, Shahida's family is really traditional, and they have strict expectations for her as a Muslim woman. But Shahida wants to explore the world like the rest of her British friends. So she constantly rebels against her parents, and she does things like, listening to rap music, staying out late, falling in love with boys. But then things end up going a step too far when she then discovers that she's gotten pregnant out of wedlock. I'm not gonna spoil the rest, but I'm sure you can imagine all the drama that went down after that. Anyways, I just found the book so relatable because, well, spoiler, I too have strict Asian parents. And coincidentally, I also used to live in Hounslow at one point. So yeah, I just felt like I actually had quite a lot in common with Shahida. But at the same time, the book was also really eye-opening because I learned so much about Pakistani traditions and other unique aspects of Shahida's culture, which I just found so fascinating. Oh, and it also doesn't help that Shahida is really funny, and some of her one-liners absolutely cracked me up. So overall, I really enjoyed The Diary of a Hounslow Girl, and I would highly recommend you guys check it out too. But of course, this is just one of the hundreds and thousands of audiobooks available on Audible. And whether you're interested in fiction, true crime, science, or any other type of genre, I can guarantee that Audible definitely has something for you. So if you'd like to listen to The Diary of a Hounslow Girl or any of the other audiobooks in Audible's massive library, then be sure to head over to the description where you can get a 30-day free trial. Huge thanks once again to Audible, and without further ado, let's jump back into today's story. Okay, so I think we should start by talking briefly about who Mirror is. Mirror is a 12-member boy group that was formed through a Hong Kong survival show called Kingmaker in 2018. Now, in many ways, Mirror is kind of inspired by K-pop boy bands in the sense that they also sing and dance and do things like variety shows. But I think what makes Mirror really stand out is the fact that they're actually the first notable boy band that Hong Kong has had in a really long time. Like, in many ways, they really rejuvenated the Hong Kong music scene. So many people consider them like a source of pride for Hong Kong, the nation's boy group, that kind of thing. And essentially, they're one of the most popular local artists. And so, as you might expect, whenever Mirror holds a concert, it's like the concert to go to. And that was exactly the case with the 2022 Mirror We Are live concert. This was supposed to be a 12-day concert starting on the 25th of July and ending on the 2nd of August. And as usual, tickets were selling out within minutes. Event organizers already knew that this concert was going to be huge, so they booked out the Coliseum, which is one of the largest performance venues in Hong Kong, and they set out to build the most impressive stage that Mirror has ever performed at. The plan was for the stage to consist of 2 runways leading up to a main diamond stage, 5 sets of stage lifts, flamethrowers, fireworks, flyover bridges, these gigantic hanging LED screens, possibly anything you can think of. But whilst coming up with these ambitious ideas was really exciting, actually having to spend time and money building the stage didn't seem quite as appealing to concert organizers. Preparations were already off to a bad start right from the beginning, with the stage assembling process only starting 7 days before the actual concert. And to make matters worse, equipment was still getting delivered as the stage was being built, so there was no time to inspect or check anything, and builders and engineers were apparently just assembling the items as they arrived. Fast forward to the 24th of July, so just 1 day before the concert, the stage still hadn't been completed yet. But the problem was, the first stage rehearsals were also scheduled to happen that night. Yup, you heard that right. The first stage rehearsal was scheduled to happen the night before the concert. Can you imagine? Obviously, Mirror, their backup dancers, and all the other performers had rehearsed in their own time in their own studios, but they never actually gotten together and rehearsed on stage before, which is obviously really important because you need to practice things like, when you're gonna come in, where you're gonna stand, your markings on stage, you need to test out the equipment. And so this stage rehearsal was super crucial. And considering how the first performance was literally tomorrow, concert organizers knew that everyone had a lot of catching up to do, and so the rehearsal was originally scheduled to last the entire night. Other Hong Kong singers have since revealed that they typically practice on stage 2 weeks before a concert. So personally, I think for Mirror to only have 1 night to rehearse for such a major concert is already pretty ridiculous. But as it turns out, even that wasn't possible, because builders still needed more time to complete the stage. So this rehearsal was cut short, and performers were only given 15 minutes to practice each song. Additionally, because most of the stage mechanics hadn't been completed yet, they had to conduct the rehearsal without many of the special effects. Despite all of this, the performers allegedly tried to make the best out of this shitty situation by practicing with the parts of the stage that were supposedly completed. But incredibly, even these so-called completed parts still had numerous technical issues, which at that point, the rehearsal was basically meaningless. And so directors just called the whole thing off and postponed it to the next morning instead. Okay, so now we're at the morning of the 25th, which is the morning of the concert. We're already cutting it super close here, guys. Anyways, all the performers gathered together once again, hoping that this time they'd be able to get in a proper rehearsal. But somehow, this rehearsal ended up being even worse than the last. This time, the stage looked mostly complete, but the mechanics were still super faulty. Additionally, the staff were also unfamiliar with operating the complex stage equipment, since they too haven't had time to practice with it beforehand. And this led to numerous accidents. The band, for example, was playing their instruments on an elevated platform when it suddenly lowered, causing the drummer and guitarist to fall off stage. In another instance, 4 of the Mirror members were supposed to walk to a stage lift in the center of the diamond stage, but before they could even get there, the lift had already lowered early. A part of the stage even caved in suddenly, causing one of the dancers to fall. In total, several performers were sent to hospital, and the dancer who fell was even forced to withdraw from the concert due to his injuries, which in hindsight was definitely a blessing in disguise. The rehearsal ended up being such a disaster that it was actually cut halfway, and performers were told to take a break and come back that afternoon for yet another rehearsal. Finally, in the afternoon, just hours before the concert was about to begin, performers were able to squeeze in a few bits of extra practice as the builders scrambled to put the finishing touches to the stage. The injured performers also rushed back from hospital with scrapes and bruises still on them. And then just like that, it was 8 p.m., the start of the concert. As you can imagine, all signs were pointing to this performance being an absolute disaster. But regardless, the show had to go on. Against all odds, the first 3 days of the concert somehow managed to proceed smoothly for the most part. Thanks to the professionalism of the performers and the staff, they were able to pull together decent performances. So much so that there were actually news articles raving about just how amazing the concert was. However, there were also some hawk-eyed fans who could see the cracks underneath the surface. On the first day of the concert, one of the Mirror members was dancing on an elevated platform when it suddenly shook violently, causing the member to have to put his hands on the ground to regain his balance. In another instance, the Mirror members were performing on the flyover bridge, which as you can see here is about 2 stories off the ground and only supported by hinges on each side. The members can clearly be seen trying to avoid the middle, which was the least supported, but even so, the bridge seemed to be unable to sustain the members' weights, as fans observed that it was actually bending and crumbling. More accidents continued to happen on the second and third day. A Mirror member fell off stage whilst making a speech. People were tripping due to the uneven flooring of the stage. And some of the elevated platforms also failed to lower in time, causing dancers to have to jump off the platforms that were allegedly 2 meters high. The performers and staff began openly complaining about their work conditions on Instagram, and some of them were even publicly praying for the safety of them and their colleagues before every show. Concerned fans also tried to raise awareness about the safety issues, but all of this went ignored by the concert organizers. The only thing that they did was to stop the use of the flimsy flyover bridge, but aside from that, no other action was taken. No engineers were called to inspect the stage, no efforts were made to fix the technical issues, and they certainly weren't gonna stop such a profitable concert now. And so, the stage remained a literal booby trap, and it was just a matter of time before someone was bound to get seriously injured. Which brings us to the 4th day of the concert, the 28th of July. At approximately 10:35 p.m., Mirror members Eden and Anson were performing a duet. Each member was stood at the sides of the diamond stage while the dancers were performing a dance sequence in the middle. This was when one of the large suspended LED screens near the center of the stage suddenly gave way. And before dancers even had time to react, the screen, which weighed approximately 2,000 pounds, came crashing down on stage, pinning 2 dancers underneath its weight. These 2 unfortunate dancers were Chung Zifeng and Lee Kai-yin, better known as Mo. Both dancers lay motionless on stage and were immediately transported to hospital. And while Chung Zifeng thankfully suffered only minor injuries, most injuries were a lot more severe, as the screen had crashed directly onto him. It was found that Mo had suffered a concussion and broke his 4th cervical vertebrae, which is one of the upper segments of the neck. If you're unaware, the spine contains the nerves that transport signals from the brain to the rest of your body. And so if you injure your spine, then you might lose control of the parts of your body that are below the point of injury, if that makes sense. So for instance, if you injure your lower back, then you might lose control of your legs. If you injure your lower neck, then you might lose control of your arms and your legs. But in Mo's case, he was unfortunate enough to injure his upper neck, which meant that not only did he lose control of all of his limbs, he also couldn't swallow, speak, or even breathe properly. The situation was truly dire, and despite going through 2 rounds of major surgery, doctors were still unable to reverse the damage. And so just like that, Mo went from being an energetic and vibrant dancer to being bedridden and paralyzed. This heartbreaking story immediately made headline news, angering not just the Hong Kong public, but people across the world. Event organizers were finally forced to put a stop to this disastrous concert, and many people began demanding for a full inquiry into how and why this accident happened. On the 31st of July, a special task force was set up to investigate the issue, and this was when the true extent of the negligence and malpractice surrounding this concert finally came to light. It was discovered that while applying for permits for the concert, the general contractor, which was a company called Engineering Impact, had intentionally understated the weight of their mechanical devices and equipment so as to obtain quicker approval from the government. For instance, Engineering Impact reported that the weight of the hanging LED devices was 3,600 pounds, when in reality, they actually weighed 9,800 pounds, or about 2.7 times heavier. Similarly, the speakers, lighting equipment, and laser devices were also found to be 8, 5, and 3 times heavier than reported respectively.
藝能工程有限公司咧提供呢啲虛假數據咧，其實最主要目的咧係希望能夠令到康文署咧係盡快批出佢哋嗰個演出許可。我要記得咧，佢哋係臨開演唱會之前咧就冇幾耐係提交呢啲嘅咁所以變咗，如果佢哋當時係提交真嘅數據嘅話咧，其實係未必趕得切嗰第一場演唱會舉行。
Meanwhile, Hip Hing Lung Stage Engineering Company, which was supposed to be in charge of the stage machinery, allegedly did not perform the required checks on the equipment. It was found that the wire ropes that were used to suspend the LED screens in question were actually in terrible condition, with many visible wire breaks and scratches.
我哋睇到嘅咧就係呢個咁嘅繩咧，除咗佢金屬疲勞之外咧，直頭變晒形嘅啲繩嘅結構。OK， 佢嘅繩咧就直頭係叉圓咁扁，咁啊好傷嘅。
Police even uncovered CCTV footage that showed that on the morning of the concert, there were already very obvious red flags with the very same LED screen that ended up falling. According to authorities, footage showed that this screen was not lowering and elevating correctly, and following this, a few staff from Hip Hing Lung could be seen climbing a ladder and inspecting the suspension wires, so they clearly knew that there was a problem with it. However, no further action was taken. Nobody tried to fix the wires, no engineers were called, they simply looked at the wires, knew that there was a problem with it, and went,
"This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently."
Another company that was found to have failed Mo and the other dancers was tragically their own management agency, Studio Dance. It was found that Studio Dance had ignored labor laws by failing to purchase medical insurance for their employees, meaning that dancers such as Mo were actually having to pay for work-related injuries out of their own pockets. Currently, the government has already filed charges against all 3 of these companies, and their trials are still ongoing. Personally, I think that a lot more people should be held responsible, including the event organizers who pushed on with the concert despite the hundreds and thousands of warning signs. But then again, I guess no amount of charges can really reverse the damage that has been done to all the victims, especially Mo. Speaking of Mo, he has shown some signs of improvement, with reports stating that he's now able to speak, eat solid foods, and has even regained some sensations in his extremities. He's also undergoing daily physiotherapy and hopes to be able to walk with the help of an exoskeleton. However, his overall prognosis still remains grim, with doctors stating that there's a 95% chance he will never regain full mobility. As for the other performers and concert goers who witnessed the incident, many of them are still left traumatized up until today, with a few of the dancers even having to seek treatment for PTSD. This is truly a tragic situation all around, but if there's a silver lining to the case, at least it has sparked some awareness about the importance of stage safety. Currently, the government has issued a temporary ban on all hanging devices on stage, and they're also working on passing new guidelines and regulations to ensure better stage construction. Only time will tell if any of these guidelines actually pass through, but regardless, I hope that this incident serves as a huge wake-up call to the stage construction industry, and hopefully they'll take more precautions in the future to ensure that a stage accident of this magnitude never happens again. But that's where the story ends for now. I'm really interested to know your thoughts on this issue and whether you know of any other similar stage accidents. So be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you found this video informative, then I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I will also be putting the research notes for this video on my Patreon, so you can check it out there if you're interested. And with that said, I'll see you guys soon. Bye! Thank you for watching, and special thanks to my Patreon members for supporting my channel. If you'd like to watch reaction videos and other bonus content, then be sure to check that out on my Patreon.